Hey everyone, back to you into today's video. We're going to have a look at whether the next 8 to 10 days in today's video. Next week is proving quite problematical, actually, as to what's going on. It did look as though high pressure is going to build in and settle things down. I think we will still get a build of high pressure next week, but quite how long it lasts, I'm not sure. It may settle things down for 2 or 3 days, but the Atlantic's in pretty buoyant phase at the moment, so it may be that we'll quickly push the Atlantic through actually as we go into next week. But a lot of uncertainty about how things are panning out or playing out next week. Now, before I get on with the video, I just want to mention the ads. There's links to articles sitting underneath the weather video here on my homepage at GavsWeatherViz.com. If you have a browse through the widget, you'll be able to see if there's any articles that you're interested in. If there is an article that you're interested in, just click through and you'll be able to go off and read the article when you finish at GavsWeatherViz, of course. You'll be helping to support the website, and thanks very much for doing that. Some pages also have green keyword ads, so if you roll your cursor over the green keyword, they'll display ads, but if you click through the word, you go to the advertising website, you'll be supporting GavsWeatherViz by doing that as well. Now, it's rather an auspicious day today for GavsWeatherViz.com because this is the final day for the HTML comment box. I've had the HTML comment box on the pages at GavsWeatherViz more or less from the very start, actually. But I'm changing over to a new commenting platform from tomorrow, Discuss. So you'll be seeing the, well, we've already got the new comment box on some of the pages. It'll be appearing on the home page from tomorrow. You have to register with Discuss to be able to comment on the videos from tomorrow. But as I say, HTML comment box has been with us more or less from the very start, so quite a sad day, and I know that it has helped to build up the popularity of the website, but I think it's time to move on to a more robust platform. We're outgrowing HTML comment box a little bit, so we're moving on to Discuss tomorrow, and hope you enjoy the new comment facilities. You'll be able to post pictures and links and all that kind of thing with Discuss, so it's a more robust platform for the website. So final day for HTML comment box, and thanks very much to them for letting us use their comment facilities over the last well, nearly 3 years, isn't it? So let's get on with the video, and these are the 500 millibar height anomaly flowcharts. We've got the ECMWF here on the left, the GFS is over on the right. These are the main flowcharts for the next 8 to 10 days. And you see what's going on here. We've got this very deep trough of low pressure in the Atlantic, a really, really deep trough there on the ECM, and it's also there on the GFS as well. Now, when you've got such a deep trough, if you've got a ridge building to the east of it, as we have here, we've got these above this area above these got that to the east, because the trough is so deep, it's always going to be putting pressure really on the ridge. It may be the trough that's helping to promote the ridge in the initial phase of the building of the ridge, but of course once it's there, you've got the trough constantly pushing against it, putting it under pressure, and that's really the problem with the models that the models are trying to sort out for next week. How much will that ridge build, and how long will it last before this trough comes in and flattens it off? The GFS temperature and precipitation ensembles are showing that temperatures are going to be around the 30-year average for the next week. The red line here is the 30-year average, and we're going to be around that for the next week. Then we go a bit above average through the last stages of next week. From around Wednesday onwards, we're going above the red line, so I think we'll get a warm up. And that's in association with that ridge building. Now, you would expect with that we get a few days of dry weather, but actually with the precipitation spikes down here on the bottom of the chart, there isn't a great deal of evidence of dry weather, so it could be that that ridge builds just very briefly, but the Atlantic comes in very quickly and flattens it off again. The winds will go into the south, I think, so that's why we're pushing up the temperatures a little bit. Now, as we go to the extended part of the ensemble, it's quite interesting. There's a huge amount of scatter there, taking us into the final week to 10 days of October. I think best to leave that alone for now, but there are some runs here going really very cold indeed for the time of year anyway, hinting at a cold snap perhaps on some of those members of the ensemble, but of course many others are going to be quite warm. So yeah, big amount of scatter there for the final week to 10 days of October. We're going to have to wait and see quite where that one is going. Now, this is the temperature anomaly for the next week, taking us excuse me, from the 9th to the 17th of October, and we're going to be well around average, a little bit below maybe for the north, a little bit above down in the south. I think which average it all out, coming out near north. Most of Europe is warm. Notice all this blue appearing to the far northeast over western and northern parts of Russia. That could be just the start of the Russian winter beginning to push in towards western parts of Russia, so we'll have to keep an eye on that. If the snow snow cover builds up very quickly across central western Russia and Scandinavia in October, it can be something that feeds back later on to the chance of a colder winter for Europe. So we're going to have to wait and see how cold it gets there across the northern and eastern parts of Europe and into western Russia. The rainfall anomaly for the coming week, the 9th to the 17th, shows for the game we're around average, a little bit below average in the north, maybe hinting at a little bit above in the south, but I think generally England and Wales is near normal. Scotland is probably drier than average. Now this is an interesting little feature here down across the south and the southeast for Monday, this area of low pressure. That could just bring some quite heavy rain into the south and southeast of the countries at the start of next week. That's just popped up in the last few runs of the model. So again, we're going to have to wait and see how much that's a huge amount of uncertainty for next week, unusual amounts of uncertainty really. That low pressure then drifts off towards the east through the course of the middle of next week. So by the time we get through to Wednesday, we're hinting at building a bit of a ridge there across the country. That's the ridge trying to build. There's that very deep trough that we saw on the flowchart in the Atlantic. As we move through to the latter stages of next week, that ridge is building through the country. So this does imply 2 or 3 days of quite settled weather, and winds going into the south as well, so warming up as well as we go through to the end of next week. Could maybe see temperatures popping back up to around 19 or 20 degrees down in the south, but it doesn't take long before that low pressure sort of rolls over the top, flattens off the ridge. So as we go into the weekend of the 18th, 19th of October, that suddenly is cut off and the ridge collapses. We bring low pressure back through the country. That's one sort of scenario. The other scenario is the ECMWF, which shows again that very deep trough of low pressure out in the Atlantic, ridge trying to build weekly over the continent. As we go through to the last stage of next week, this Friday the 17th, we take that probably quite active weather system up to the north and the west of the country. That could bring some active weather fronts, but down to the south and southeast, high pressure is building nicely over France, over winds from a very mild southwesterly direction, pushing up from the Azores, but it could be quite wet up in the north and the west. The ECMWF, I think, is a wetter solution than the GFS. And as we go through to the weekend of the 18th, 19th, this is day 10, the 19th of October, so the 19th. Again, low pressure is out to the southwest of the country, probably throwing up quite active weather systems. It could be turning really quite wet, particularly in the west, but maybe all parts of the country. But it's warm with those winds coming up from the south-southwest. Actually, if you look at the upper air temperatures on the ECMWF for day 10, very warm air there across much of France, Spain, Portugal, just pushing into southern parts of England as well, and usually warm for time of year. That could bring thunder, really, of this area of low pressure down in the southwest. But look how cold it is up to the north over Scandinavia and western parts of Russia. I say the winter, the Russian and northern Scandinavian Nordic winter is really setting in there. So a huge temperature contrast. That's very unusual to see such a difference in temperatures across the continent, from minus 10 at 850 HPA in the north, almost up to 15 to 20 HPA down across some parts of France, Spain and Portugal. So big temperature contrast there. Obviously some very heavy rain in places, and we would be at risk of some heavy rain with that temperature contrast, I think, with this area of low pressure out in the Atlantic. A lot of uncertainty as we're going through to next week, but I still think we'll get a few days of drier weather, hopefully around Wednesday to Friday. I think it'll warm up as well. We will see the temperatures picking up, possibly getting back towards 20, maybe 21 degrees, 70 Fahrenheit for a time later next week. But quite how settled it stays, I'm not sure. I think by next weekend, certainly it could be turning quite wet again from the Atlantic. And if the ECMWF is right, it never really dries out actually, and it could stay pretty wet, albeit very warm. Could stay pretty wet through much of next week. So a lot of uncertainty about what's going on there. I'll keep you posted on that, of course. Tomorrow it's JMA Friday. We'll be looking at the month ahead from the Japanese model, also probably having a look at the Asian Climate Centre and the CFS as well. So it's for long range update tomorrow, so come back for that. And that's all for now. Thanks for watching.